You ever have one of those neighbors, the kind who thinks she's the queen of the block, self-appointed guardian of the neighborhood standards? Well, what if that same neighbor was also the president of your law? Now imagine she's been harassing you for years, nitpicking your lawn, spying on your guests, and even trying to find your dog for barking. Yeah, that kind of Karen. But here's the thing, she didn't know I married to a 911 dispatcher. So when she tried to weaponize the police to force her way into my property, she ended up making the call that ruined her own life. Let me tell you the story of how the hoe is queen bee got arrested live by the same authorities she tried to manipulate. Because karma doesn't take a day off. We moved into this neighborhood 3 years ago. My wife and I had just welcomed our second child and wanted a quiet, safe place with good schools. The house was a dream, 2 stories, a big backyard, even a little garden space. But there was one thing we didn't know, something far worse than termites: our foundation cracks. The law, and worse, the law president. A woman named Margaret Reynolds, but everyone called her Margie, or less politely Karen. Margie was the self-declared enforcer of everything, from fence paint to grass length. The first week we moved in, she welcomed this with a packet of fines, left on our doorstep. Why? Because our moving van had been parked too long. Because we hadn't yet submitted our mailbox design to the architectural committee. Because the children's sidewalk chalk was graffiti. We should have known right then that Margie was going. Over the next few months, things got progressively worse. We'd get warning letters if we left the trash bins out 15 minutes past pickup. A $50 fine for a flower pot that didn't match the community aesthetic. The $75 citation because my wife hung a seasonal wreath that had, get this, purple flowers, which apparently were not in the approved walk color palette. It was ridiculous. But Margie wasn't just enforcing rules. She was obsessed with us. She walked by our house multiple times a day. We'd catch her peeking through our fence. And when I installed a security camera, she had the gall to send a complaint, saying it violated privacy guidelines. My wife, Clara, tried to stay calm. She's the type who reads people well. But even she started documenting things. Especially after the dog incident. We have a golden retriever, Max. He's friendly, never aggressive. But one afternoon, Margie knocked on our door with a police officer, claiming Max had charged her. Fortunately, our camera showed Margie had approached the dog on our property, and Max never even barked. She just wanted to create drama. That video, it saved Max from being taken to animal control. It also planted the seed we needed to be ready. Because it wasn't a matter of if Margie would escalate. It was when Clara isn't just sharp. She's a trained emergency dispatcher. She's heard every kind of emergency. Car crashes, home invasions, domestic violence, even fake calls meant to get back at someone. So she started preparing. She set up documentation folders, footage storage, voice memos. She even asked one of her cop friends, off the record, about Margie's history. Turns out Margie had filed dozens of YO complaints across 3 counties. She'd moved around every few years, often after a string of incidents with her neighbors. Classic Karen. One evening, Clara looked up from her laptop and said, she's going to call 911 eventually. She wants power, and if she thinks she's losing control, she'd try to use the police as a weapon. I asked, so what do we do? She smiled. We wait. The trigger was so small it was almost laughable. We planted a row of sunflowers along the inside of our backyard fence. They were beautiful, Clara's favorite. But one had grown over the top, and leaned slightly into common wall airspace. Margie saw that as her opportunity. She came storming up the driveway one morning. While I was loading my truck for work, I waved. She didn't wave back. "Remove the invasive plant or I'll remove it myself." She snapped. I said calmly, "It's not invasive, it's a sunflower and it's on my land." That's when she lost it. She shouted, "I am the WEO president. You will respect the community rules. If you don't remove it by noon, I'm coming in." I ignored her. But Clara behind the curtain recorded everything. We knew what was coming at 11:47 a.m. Margie dialed 911. She claimed there was a dangerous dispute, that we were threatening her, and that she had authority to inspect and enter the premises. What she didn't know, Clara had just returned to her dispatcher shift that morning. And guess who picked up the call? Yep, Clara answered with her standard line. Confirmed the location, and immediately recognized the voice. Margie didn't recognize Clarice. Not at first. She launched into a dramatic monologue. "They're refusing to let me onto the property to perform a compliance inspection. The man is threatening and I fear for my safety." Clara responded calmly, "Ma'am, have you been physically threatened?" Margie hesitated. "Well, not exactly," Clara pressed. "Has he touched you, made any threats of violence, or brandished the weapon?" "No, but I'm the one president, and I have a right to access." "No, ma'am," Clara cut in, now stern. "That's a civil matter. Entering someone's property without permission can constitute trespassing. I need you to remain where you are." And then Clara said it also. "For the record, this call is being recorded in your location. History is available. If you're filing a false emergency report, you may be subject to criminal charges." Silence, then Margie's voice cracked. Who are you?" Clara said plainly. "I'm Clara. I live at that address." "I'm also the dispatcher you're talking to. Please remain outside the property. Officers are on the way." Mic drop. 5 minutes after the call ended, we saw her marching around the side of our fence, with a ladder and pruning shears. She had actually brought tools to climb into our yard. Right after a 911 dispatcher warned her not to. Our doorbell camera recorded the whole thing. The moment she stepped onto the ladder and leaned it against our fence, the first patrol car rolled up. 2 officers got out and shouted, "Man, step down from the ladder." She froze. "Do you have permission to enter this property?" One officer asked, "I am the WAA president." "That's not what I asked." They cuffed her right there. Margie was arrested for trespassing and misuse of emergency services. She screamed the entire time I was enforcing WEO law. "I have power. I have rights." No, Karen. Not today. The arrest sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. For the first time, people started speaking out. Turns out we weren't the only ones harassed. One neighbor had been fined for having a non-regulation bird feeder. Another said Margie reported their son's birthday party, his unauthorized assembly. A few weeks later, an emergency law meeting was held. This time, Margie wasn't at the head of the table. She was banned from holding any law office permanently. The new president, a retired lawyer, who immediately began reforming the law charter. One clause stood out greater than law. Board members shall have no authority to enter private property without consent or a warrant. In Margie, she tried to sue us. But the recordings, both Clarice call in the video of her trespassing, shut it down fast. We stayed in that house. We still live here. The neighborhood is peaceful now. No more random inspections. No more passive-aggressive letters. No more power trips, but we did learn a lesson. Document everything. Know your rights and never ever underestimated Karen. Especially when you've got a wife. Who answers the phones at 911? Thanks for watching. If you've ever dealt with an out-of-control law, or a Karen who thinks rules don't apply to her, let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you think Clara deserves a medal. And maybe subscribe for more stories where karma does its job. Until next time, stay safe and keep your sunflowers blooming.